At 9:17 on a rain-soaked Friday night, Vanessa Sterling stood beneath a ceiling of crystal lights on the 86th floor of Crown Meridian Tower and told a room full of billionaires that nothing in the city could rise without her permission. Cameras flashed. Champagne moved through the crowd. Far below, traffic curled around the new glass skyscraper like glowing veins, and every major news station in Chicago was broadcasting the building's grand opening live. Then the lights flickered once. A soft alarm sounded behind the marble walls. 36 elevator cars stopped at the nearest floor, their doors opening safely but refusing to move again. Within minutes, guests in designer clothes were staring at emergency stairwells. Television crews were asking why the most advanced tower in America had gone silent. And Vanessa learned that the black mechanic she had mocked, underpaid, and thrown out of the building was the only person who could legally restore the system. By midnight, the woman who had built her reputation on never apologizing was walking down 82 flights of stairs while the entire country watched. Before this story begins, remember one thing: the names on a building are rarely the names keeping it safe. If you believe honest work deserves respect, share this story with someone who needs that reminder. Darius Cole had spent 22 years listening to machines speak. To most people, an elevator was a polished box that appeared when a button was pressed. To Darius, it was a living system of cables, brakes, motors, relays, sensors, and thousands of decisions made in fractions of a second. He could hear a worn bearing and a faint vibration, and feel an uneven rail through the soles of his boots. His father, Walter, had taught him the trade in old apartment buildings on Chicago's South Side. Walter had worked for decades during a time when black technicians were given the dirtiest assignments and the least credit. His lesson was simple: steel did not care about a man's title or skin color, and gravity did not care how important he felt. Both demanded honesty. At 43, Darius owned Cole Vertical Systems, a 6-person company known for solving problems larger firms could not. The business paid its workers and kept a roof over the modest brick house where he lived with his 11-year-old daughter, Amara, but it did not leave much extra. Since his wife's death 4 years earlier, Darius had been both parent and provider, packing lunches before dawn, answering emergency calls during breakfast, and checking homework beside wiring diagrams at night. Every morning began before sunrise. Darius packed Amara's lunch, tried to make her braids even, and drove her to school before opening the shop. Every evening ended at the same kitchen table, where overdue invoices sat beside her homework. He never told her how close the company sometimes came to missing payroll. He only told her that promises to workers had to be kept before an owner paid himself. That was why his employees stayed loyal even when larger companies offered more money. Amara wanted to become an engineer. Her room was crowded with broken clocks, toy motors, old radios, and handwritten theories about what had failed. Money was tight, but love and truth were never scarce in their home. Across the city, Vanessa Sterling lived in a different world. At 38, she led Sterling Urban Holdings, a real estate empire feared for its ruthless negotiations and admired for its speed. Crown Meridian Tower was supposed to be her masterpiece: 86 stories of luxury residences, offices, a hotel, a private medical center, and a members-only club above the river. Its grand opening was tied to an international investment summit, and Vanessa had promised the board it would happen on October 18. No delays, no excuses. 3 weeks before the ceremony, City Inspector Samuel Ortega felt a tiny hesitation while riding express car number 12. Most passengers would not have noticed it. Ortega ordered a full brake test, and the emergency brake engaged outside the required tolerance. 2 more cars showed the same delay. The general contractor blamed calibration, the manufacturer blamed installation, and the installation crew blamed software. Vanessa listened to 6 hours of excuses before demanding one answer: could the elevators be certified by opening night? Without certification, the hotel could not open, the summit would relocate, and the tower would become a public failure before its first resident arrived. Ortega finally recommended Darius. "If he says the system is safe, I trust him," he said. "If he says it is not, no amount of pressure will change his answer. Vanessa leaned back. Everyone has a price. Ortega shook his head. That is exactly why you need him. Darius arrived the next morning in a navy work jacket, carrying a canvas tool bag. His aging service van looked out of place beside the black executive cars, and security stopped him twice despite his emergency clearance. Inside the marble lobby, project manager Blake Harlan looked at the bag and smirked. That all you brought? For the first hour, Darius replied. The lobby itself was designed to intimidate. White marble stretched beneath a sculpture of silver birds, digital walls displayed drifting clouds, and a silent waterfall flowed behind reception. Darius ignored all of it and studied the elevator doors. He placed one hand against the wall, waiting for the faint tremor of a passing car. Blake watched with open doubt, but Darius had learned long ago that people who understood appearances often underestimated those who understood systems. He spent the day riding the affected elevators without opening a panel. He listened through acceleration, watched the landing gaps, and felt the floor through his boots while engineers whispered that he was wasting time. Near sunset, Vanessa confronted him. Why have you spent 8 hours riding elevators? Because the brakes are not the first problem, Darius answered. They are the result of something else. She demanded to know whether he could meet the deadline. Darius refused to guess. He asked for 36 hours, full access, no interference, and the original purchase records for every safety component. Blake said those records were irrelevant. Darius looked at him. Then they should be easy to provide. For the next day and a half, Darius barely left the tower. He opened control cabinets, checked governor ropes, measured voltage drops, inspected rail alignment, and dismantled brake assemblies under portable lights. At 4 in the morning, he found the first proof. He and 2 technicians worked through the night, sleeping less than an hour on folded moving blankets. Darius tested one theory after another, refusing to blame software simply because software was invisible. The delay appeared only after repeated high-speed stops, which meant heat was changing something inside the braking system. That clue led him to remove the first shoe and examine the surface beneath magnification. The brake shoes carried the correct manufacturer's logo, but the friction material was wrong. Genuine shoes could survive repeated high-speed stops. These began glazing under temperatures they should have handled easily. They were counterfeit. Lot numbers showed the tower had paid full price for certified equipment and received imitations instead. When Darius requested purchasing records again, Blake refused. By noon, Vanessa arrived with attorneys and the chief financial officer. Darius placed a genuine brake shoe beside the counterfeit one and showed them thermal tests, density readings, and microscopic photographs. How many? Vanessa asked. At least 24 cars, he said, possibly all 36. To prove the difference, he heated both samples under controlled conditions. The genuine material held its texture. The imitation became glassy and smooth, reducing the friction needed during an emergency stop. Darius explained that the elevators might operate normally for weeks, even months, before the weakness appeared at the worst possible moment. A successful ride did not make the system safe. It only meant the hidden defect had not yet been asked to save a life. The elevators could be repaired, but only with emergency manufacturing, overnight freight, continuous crews, and independent testing. Blake accused Darius of exploiting the crisis when he named the cost. Darius did not raise his voice. The emergency existed before I walked in. Vanessa demanded a guarantee that the tower would open. I guarantee honest work, he said. The rest depends on what else your people hid. Vanessa asked whether 20 days could accomplish what major firms had said would take months. Darius answered that the repair was possible only if every decision was made for safety instead of appearance. He would not reuse questionable parts, skip independent testing, or sign promises about conditions he had not verified. The room heard caution. Vanessa heard resistance. Still, with the summit approaching and no alternative available, she signed his emergency agreement. The next 19 days pushed everyone beyond exhaustion. Replacement components were manufactured in Ohio and rushed to Chicago. Darius divided his crew into rotating shifts, photographed every removed part, and personally checked each installation before a car returned to testing. Several evenings, Amara stayed in a secured maintenance office because Darius could not find childcare on short notice. She did homework in oversized hearing protection, while mechanics saved harmless retired relays for her to examine. Vanessa once found Darius helping her with math at 2 in the morning while eating cold noodles from a paper container. "You bring your daughter to a construction site?" she asked. "To a secured office inside one," Darius replied. Amara looked up. "My dad checks everything twice." The crew began treating Amara like a junior apprentice. They explained why counterweights reduced motor strain and why elevator doors had more safety circuits than most people imagined. She filled pages with drawings while Darius moved between machine rooms. Once, she found him asleep upright in a chair with a torque chart in his hand. She covered him with her jacket and guarded the office door for 20 minutes before waking him for the next test. After Vanessa walked away, Amara whispered that the CEO looked angry even when silent. Darius smiled. "Some people think looking angry makes them powerful. Does it work?" "No," he said. "It makes people nervous. That is different." One by one, the cars passed high-speed brake tests, emergency power tests, fire service recall tests, and full-load runs. But as the system improved, the paper trail became worse. Darius found altered receiving documents, missing serial numbers, and approvals from Blake's office. The difference between genuine components and the likely cost of the imitations exceeded $600,000. Darius gave copies to Vanessa and told her the matter required investigation. She worried that a criminal scandal would destroy the opening. He reminded her that hiding the evidence could endanger every future project. Vanessa told him to finish the elevators and let her lawyers handle the rest. Darius placed a folder on her desk. "I will finish, but my final report will include what I found." From that moment, she treated him as an obstacle. Approval slowed. Accounting questioned receipts already submitted. Security checked his bag at every entrance. Blake challenged him in front of his crew. When a young technician asked why they did not leave, Darius answered, "Thousands of people will use these elevators. We finish what we started, then we deal with the rest." The afternoon before the gala, car number 36 passed its final load test. The control room erupted in exhausted cheers, and Amara held up a hand-drawn sign that read, "THEY all stop right." By every technical measure, the system was ready. Only the final turnover remained. Darius had to submit his signed report, transfer protected settings, and train the permanent maintenance company. At the meeting the next morning, Darius presented a 312-page report documenting every repair, test, and replaced component. The room had been prepared like a negotiation rather than a safety conference. Copies of the report were missing from several seats, and the attorneys already had a shortened version with the procurement section removed. Darius realized the decision had been made before he entered. They did not want his opinion. They wanted his signature attached to their version of events. When he reached the counterfeit parts and altered purchasing records, Blake interrupted. "That section is outside your contract. It explains the cause," Darius said. Vanessa offered to accept the technical report only if the procurement evidence was removed pending an internal review. Darius refused. An attorney warned that his language could be called defamatory. "Then investigate it and prove me wrong," he said. Vanessa accused him of lecturing the company on governance. Darius reminded her that his job was safety, and that safety included the process that allowed fake breaks into 36 elevators. Then the chief financial officer placed a revised invoice in front of him. Sterling Urban Holdings had authorized less than half the contracted payment. Emergency labor had been reduced, overnight freight labeled unauthorized, and specialized testing called optional. He turned each page slowly, seeing the names of his employees beside hours the company had erased. Terrence had missed his son's birthday to complete the emergency schedule. Another technician had worked with a swollen wrist because there was no replacement qualified for the control system. Darius had borrowed against a personal credit line to pay the parts deposit. Vanessa reduced all that sacrifice to numbers she believed he was too desperate to challenge. Blake pushed the paper closer. "Take the payment. Sign the clean report. We all move on." Darius understood the pressure. They believed a small black-owned company could not afford a legal fight. They expected payroll, debt, and fear to make him remove the truth. He closed the report. "I will not sign a false document." Vanessa insisted no one had asked him to lie. "You asked me to remove the truth," he replied. The city representatives watched Vanessa carefully. A signed report would allow everyone to celebrate and postpone the scandal. An unsigned report would expose the dispute immediately. Darius knew one small movement of his pen could protect his company's bank account and damage his conscience. He also knew Amara would someday ask what he had done. That question mattered more than the people sitting across from him. When Vanessa ordered security to remove him, Ortega warned that the final turnover would remain incomplete without the responsible contractor's attestation. Vanessa said the cars had passed. "They passed Darius's tests," Ortega replied. "The city still needs his final handoff." Darius offered the same terms: honor the contract, open a documented investigation, and keep the evidence in the report. Vanessa accused him of holding the opening hostage. "Gravity is holding it hostage," he answered. "I am the one telling you the truth." Security entered. Darius gathered his notebook, laptop, and canvas bag while his crew waited in the lobby. Blake called after him, saying he was throwing away the largest job his little company would ever receive. Darius turned. "I finished the biggest job your company could not handle. You are the one refusing to honor it." Then he walked out. Sterling Urban Holdings announced that every elevator had passed safety testing and the tower would open as scheduled. The statement did not mention Darius, the unsigned report, or the counterfeit parts. Vanessa ordered the permanent maintenance company to assume control. Its legal department refused without Darius's signed handoff. A second company refused as well. The national manufacturer would provide advice, but would not unlock protected calibration settings without a valid transfer. The city granted limited operation until midnight because the physical test had passed, but final public certification remained pending. Vanessa saw only the hours before the deadline. The gala began at 7, filling the tower with investors, politicians, celebrities, foreign officials, and television crews. For the first hour, everything worked. On the 86th floor, Vanessa spoke about vision, power, and refusing limits. A reporter asked whether the contractor who repaired the elevators had signed the final report. Vanessa avoided the question. When another reporter asked whether he had been removed from the building, she made the decision that would follow her for years. "A contractor attempted to exploit our deadline for personal gain," she said. "Sterling Urban Holdings does not reward extortion." The accusation went out live. Several guests laughed politely, assuming the reporter had asked about an ordinary billing disagreement. Vanessa could have said the matter was under review. She could have acknowledged Darius's work and promised transparency. Instead, embarrassed by a question she could not control, she chose to make him look greedy. The word extortion was not accidental. She knew it could destroy a small contractor's reputation long after the gala ended. Across town, Darius was helping Amara demonstrate a small motorized lift at her school science night. When Terrence called to tell him what Vanessa had said, Darius ordered his crew not to respond online or speak from anger. "Save every document," he said. "We tell the truth in the right place." At 9:17, a storm pushed heavy rain against Crown Meridian's glass walls. A nearby transformer suffered a voltage dip lasting less than 1 second. The tower's emergency power system responded exactly as designed, and every elevator computer ran a safety check before transferring to backup power. Car 12 detected a discrepancy between its stored brake calibration and the protected field settings awaiting final turnover. Darius had programmed the system to fail safely if a power event occurred before the handoff. The car moved to the nearest floor, opened its doors, and locked out for authorized verification. Because all 36 cars shared a high-rise dispatch network, the remaining elevators entered controlled standby, stopped at the nearest landing, and opened. No one was trapped. No one was injured. Nothing had broken. The system had protected itself. But it would not restart without a certified technician reviewing the event and completing the unfinished transfer. The maintenance company refused remote authorization. Blake demanded a bypass, but the building engineer would not accept the liability. Within 10 minutes, thousands of guests stood in hallways, while television crews aimed cameras at emergency stairwells. Vanessa called Darius repeatedly. When he finally saw the missed calls, Amara asked whether his repair had failed. Darius explained that the system had stopped because the final safety handoff was never completed. "Because they did not pay you?" she asked. "Because they wanted me to sign something untrue," he said. She asked whether anyone was trapped. He told her every door was open. Darius could hear fear beneath Amara's questions, but not fear for the wealthy guests. She was afraid the world would blame her father. He knelt so they were eye to eye and told her machines kept records even when powerful people rewrote stories. Every test, access code, and command was time-stamped. "Truth might arrive slowly," he said, "but careful work always left it a path." "Can you fix it?" she asked. Darius thought about payroll, the mortgage, Blake's insult, and Vanessa calling him an extortionist. Then he thought about the people inside the tower. "I am going to make sure nobody gets hurt," he said. "But I am not going to lie." Police had closed a lane outside Crown Meridian by the time Darius arrived. Reporters surrounded his van, asking whether he had sabotaged the tower or demanded money to restart it. Darius raised his hands and spoke calmly. The elevators entered a safe operating mode during a power transfer. The system did what it was designed to do. "I am here because public safety comes before a contract dispute." That sentence changed the story. Viewers saw a tired black mechanic returning in the rain to protect people inside a building whose CEO had just attacked his character. Ortega met him in the lobby and reminded him that the company still had not accepted his report or paid the contract. Darius looked at the silent doors. "Those machines are my responsibility until someone qualified accepts them." Vanessa reached the lobby after descending dozens of floors through emergency routes, carrying her shoes while cameras recorded her humiliation. For nearly an hour, she had descended through crowded stairwells while guests passed her with phones raised. Some demanded refunds. Others repeated the accusation she had made against Darius and asked why an alleged extortionist controlled the tower's safety. Each floor stripped away another layer of authority. By the time she reached the lobby, she no longer looked like the woman who had stood beneath the crystal lights. She ordered Darius to restart the elevators. He required full system access, the city inspector, the building engineer, and the maintenance company on a recorded call. Vanessa demanded to know what he wanted. "A safe procedure," he said. "After that, we deal with the report and the contract." She ordered him to sign that night. Darius shook his head. "I will not trade safety documents for payment." He was not refusing to help until he received money. He was refusing to hide evidence in exchange for it. Under the eyes of inspectors, firefighters, engineers, and cameras, Darius reviewed the event log. Darius did not touch the reset controls until every person in the room confirmed the procedure. He read the event sequence aloud, asked the engineer to verify each timestamp, and required Ortega to witness the diagnostic test. Vanessa wanted speed. Darius created a record. He understood that the same people demanding shortcuts now might later claim he had acted alone. Within 20 minutes, he proved the elevators had not failed. The lockout remained because the permanent handoff was incomplete. He could restore restricted operation for evacuation and essential service, but full public operation required a proper turnover under the original report. Blake pushed into the control room and demanded an immediate reset. Darius pointed to the audit log. Someone had entered an override code at 8:52, removing an automatic verification step. The building engineer looked at Blake. Every entry was time-stamped, and Blake's credentials had authorized the override. Those same credentials appeared on several suspicious purchasing records. Vanessa turned toward him. "You told me the system was ready." Blake blamed Darius for leaving an unnecessary lockout. Darius answered, "I left a required handoff protection. You tried to bypass it." The gala delay had now exposed evidence connected to the counterfeit parts. Vanessa's face went pale. For the first time, she looked at Darius without arrogance. "Restore emergency service," she said quietly. Darius activated 6 cars under firefighter and evacuation control. The first restricted car rose to collect a woman using a wheelchair from the 43rd floor. The second carried an elderly guest whose medication was in his hotel room. Darius monitored each trip from the control panel, refusing requests to prioritize celebrities or investors. "Need comes before status," he told the building staff. No one argued. Elderly guests, people with disabilities, medical staff, and essential personnel moved first. Everyone else used the stairs in organized groups. By midnight, video of Vanessa descending the tower had spread nationwide. Commentators replayed her extortion accusation beside footage of Darius returning in the rain. Engineers explained that the elevators had stopped safely rather than failed dangerously. The board called an emergency meeting for 6 the next morning. Darius did not attend. He went home, made Amara hot chocolate, and sat at the kitchen table until dawn. She asked whether he was in trouble, then whether he had done the right thing. When he admitted he was still scared, she looked confused. Darius told her, "Doing the right thing does not stop consequences. It only helps you live with them." Then they repaired the leaning pulley on her science project. While they worked, Vanessa faced a board that no longer accepted excuses. The directors played the previous night's footage in silence. First came Vanessa's speech about leadership, then her accusation, then Darius in the rain, calmly explaining that the system had protected the public. The contrast was more damaging than any angry interview could have been. He had shown restraint while she had shown contempt, and no public relations team could reverse what millions had already seen. The evidence showed that Blake had bought counterfeit components through a shell distributor connected to his brother-in-law, altered receiving records, and redirected the savings into consulting payments. Yet the directors also held Vanessa responsible. She had received Darius's evidence 4 days before the opening, delayed action to protect the gala, pressured him to remove it, reduced his payment, and attacked him publicly. One director asked why she had assumed Darius would lie for money. Vanessa had no good answer. She had spent years believing everyone could be managed through pressure. Employees wanted promotions, vendors wanted contracts, politicians wanted donations, and investors wanted returns. Darius had wanted only the truth recorded. His refusal exposed a weakness in her leadership no financial report had shown. By 9, Blake was suspended, law enforcement had the records, and the board authorized Darius's full invoice, late fees, legal costs, and emergency service charges. Vanessa was ordered to issue a correction. Instead of sending an attorney, she drove alone to Cole Vertical Systems. The shop stood in a narrow brick building beside a tire warehouse. Darius's employees fell silent when Vanessa entered. She told them the original report would be submitted without changes, the purchasing records were under investigation, and full payment had been authorized. Then she apologized without legal language. "I called you dishonest because you would not help me hide something dishonest," she told Darius. "I used your company's size against you. I assumed financial pressure would make you compromise. When it did not, I attacked your reputation. I was wrong." Turning to his crew, she added, "You saved that building. We treated your work as if it mattered less than our name, when our name depended on your work." She also admitted that Darius had warned her before the crisis, and that the shutdown was not sabotage. Her public correction named Cole Vertical Systems as the team responsible for making the elevators safe. Darius listened without satisfaction. An apology could repair a record, but it could not return the hours his crew had spent wondering whether their company would survive. Darius did not ask for revenge. He asked what would change after the apology. Vanessa promised an independent safety channel for contractors, a neutral review of disputed emergency invoices, direct access to the board's audit committee, and protection against payment retaliation for reporting violations. Darius told her to put it in writing and make it public. When she offered to name the policy after him, he refused. "Doing the right thing should be normal," he said, "not a monument." Vanessa agreed that the policy would apply to every contractor, not only large firms with legal departments. She also accepted a rule requiring executives to disclose any attempt to change safety findings for financial or public relations reasons. Darius did not forgive her immediately, and she did not ask him to. Respect, he told her, would have to be rebuilt the same way the elevators had been rebuilt, one verified part at a time. That afternoon, The full payment reached Cole Vertical Systems. Darius paid every employee's overtime, repaired the company van, and stabilized the business. Then he drove Amara to the engineering summer program she had wanted to attend for 2 years. At the registration desk, he handed her the form. She stared at him. "This is from the tower. This is from work we earned," Darius answered. 2 days later, after the city accepted the full report and the maintenance company completed a formal handoff, Crown Meridian received final certification. Vanessa asked Darius to lead the first public ride. He declined and requested that the car carry the mechanics, inspectors, and engineers who had done the work. Amara stood beside him holding his black notebook as the elevator rose 86 floors without a shake or hesitation. When the doors opened, a reporter asked how Darius felt. He looked back at the workers inside the car. Proud of the people who told the truth before it was convenient. The criminal investigation lasted nearly a year. Blake eventually pleaded guilty to fraud-related charges, and the counterfeit distributor was shut down. Authorities discovered that similar components had been sold to other projects across 3 states. Darius's records helped inspectors locate them before anyone was injured. Sterling Urban Holdings survived, but Vanessa changed the way she led. She still demanded results, yet she stopped rewarding managers for bringing only good news. When a project fell behind, she asked which warning had been ignored. When a contractor raised a safety issue, she listened before calculating the cost. Her new protection policy became public and was later adopted by other developers. A year after the opening, Vanessa invited Darius to speak in the same ballroom where the elevators had stopped. He stood before hundreds of executives with one photograph of an elevator brake behind him. Safety, he explained, was not a department but a chain of promises. The engineer promised the design was sound. The supplier promised the material was real. The mechanic promised the installation was correct. The inspector promised the test was honest. The owner promised none of them would be punished for telling the truth. Amara sat in the front row during the speech. She had heard adults describe her father as stubborn, difficult, and brave, often without understanding that all 3 words referred to the same decision. When the audience stood, Darius looked at her rather than the executives. She lifted his black notebook above her head, and he knew she understood what the entire struggle had been for. "If one promise is bought, hidden, or threatened," Darius said, "the whole system becomes weaker, even when the building still looks beautiful." He reminded them that the elevators had not embarrassed the company by stopping. They had done what good systems should do when trust was incomplete. They had refused to pretend everything was fine. Darius never celebrated Vanessa's humiliation. He understood that justice was not only about making the wrong person suffer. It was about making the system safer for the next person brave enough to speak. Years later, Amara studied mechanical engineering and kept her crooked 5th-grade lift on a shelf above her desk. Cole Vertical Systems grew, hiring apprentices from neighborhoods where talented young people rarely met engineers who looked like them. On their first day, Darius gave each apprentice a black notebook and repeated Walter Cole's lesson. "Steel does not care who you are. Gravity does not care what title you have. Measure correctly. Tell the truth. Respect both." He taught the apprentices technical skills, but he also taught them how to document pressure, how to stop work without creating panic, and how to speak clearly when someone with more money demanded a dangerous shortcut. "You may be the only person in the room willing to say no," he told them. "Make sure your no is supported by facts, and then do not sell it." Crown Meridian Tower remained one of the city's most recognizable landmarks. Tourists photographed its glass walls, residents praised the views, and magazines eventually called it a triumph. But those present on opening night remembered something else. They remembered 36 elevator cars opening their doors and refusing to move until the truth was acknowledged. They remembered a black mechanic returning in the rain, not for revenge, but to protect people who had watched his name dragged across television. And they remembered a powerful CEO learning that money could buy steel, glass, labor, and land, but it could not buy integrity after she had thrown it away. Power can force a door closed. Fear can keep people silent for a while. Arrogance can build something tall enough to touch the clouds, But trust is what lets a person step inside, press a button, and believe they will arrive safely. That night, the elevator stopped because a system refused to lie. In the end, that refusal did not destroy Crown Meridian Tower. It saved it.